සුබ සන්ධ්‍යාව සියලු දෙනාටම good afternoon good evening අපි අද නොවැම්බර් 20 වෙනිදා ඩිස්කෂන් එක අපේ සංවාදය පටන් ගන්න බලාපොරොත්තුව අපේ වැදගත්ම කාර්යයක් තාම කෙරීගෙන යනවා ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් මතක් කරන්න ඕනේ ඒක තමයි අපි මේ people's petition එක කියන්නේ ධර්මච විචාරණයක් ඉල්ලන petition එක තාම active ඒක පුළුවන් තරම් දැනුවත් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් ගොඩක් හොඳයි අපිත් ඒ ගැන වැඩ කරගෙන යනවා දැනට. ඒකට සමහර අයට පොඩ්ඩක් අඳුනලා දෙන්න අපි මේ ශ්‍රී ලංකන්ස් අපි ලීඩ්ස් කියන පොඩි එකතුවක් අපි කරගෙන යන්නේ අපේ රටේ හොඳ පැත්තකට හරව ගන්න පුළුවන් වැඩ කටයුතු තමයි අපි ඩිස්කෂන් එකකට භාවිතා කරලා පුළුවන් තරම් එක්ස්පර්ට්ස්ලා එකතු කරගෙන මේ කරගෙන යන්නේ. එතකොට මේ සිස්ටම් චේන්ජ් එක ගැන අපි ගොඩක් කතා කරා ලංකාවේ ගොඩක් දෙනෙකුට අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තිබුණ සිස්ටම් චේන්ජ් එකක්. හැබැයි කොතනද මේ සිස්ටම් චේන්ජ් එක කරන්න ඕන කියන එක තමයි අපි දැන් හොයාගෙන යන්නේ. ඒකේ අපි ඩිස්කෂන්ස් දෙකක් තුනක් අපි කරා. එතකොට දැන්ට කරන්නේ ඒක ගැන ඉලෙක්ටරල් රිෆෝම්ස්. එතකොට ඡන්ද ක්‍රමේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න තමයි අපි කතා කරගෙන යන්නේ. එතකොට ලීඩ්ස් හැටියට අපි ලර්න් ඇන්ඩ් එඩියුකේට් කියලා තියෙන මුලින්ම ඉතින් අපි පුළුවන් තරම් බෑග්ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එක දැනගන්න ඕනේ. සිස්ටම් චේන්ජ් එකේ ඉලෙක්ටරල් රිෆෝම්ස් වලට අවශ්‍ය බෑග්ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එක පොඩ්ඩක් ගියසරේ කතා කරපු හින්දා මම පොඩ්ඩක් විනාඩි 5ක් විතර අරගෙන ඒක එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරන්නම්. ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අපි ප්‍රොෆෙසර් ලක්ෂ්මන් දිසානායක කතා කරා 6th of November ඉලෙක්ටරල් රිෆෝම්ස් ගැන and ඒකේ පොඩි සමරි එකක් මම මේකම පෙන්නන්නම්. එතකොට he said that we have to promote voter allegiance more than party allegiance among elected politicians to the parliament. දැන් තියෙන විදියට elected politicians ලා වැඩියෙන් බලන්නේ party leader කියන දේ කරන්න හදනවා මිසක් ඒගොල්ලෝ elect කරපු voters ලා කියපු දේවල් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ re-election එකට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ party එකෙන් nominate කරන එක නිසා. So to achieve this, eradicate candidate bias introduced in the proportional election system where the party leader selects the candidates, not voters. So there's a problem. එතකොට can we make election manifestos legally binding? මේකත් එක හේතුවක් then only අපි votes ඒ කියන්නේ අපි polls will only have value if an election manifesto is legally binding. හැබැයි එහෙම තත්ත්වයක් ඇති කරගන්න අමාරු හැබැයි කරන්න බැරි කමකුත් නැහැ. එතකොට crossover of MPs has been the root cause of some issues. ඒකට හේතුව such as buying the vote. ඒකට හේතු වෙලා තියෙන such crossovers should make the MP lose his seat like in other countries. Then they will be more responsible as to what they are doing when they are elected. Fourth one is application of meritocracy. Meritocracy කියන්නේ ඒ MPs ලාගේ තියෙන experience එක. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ දැනුම පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ in selection of the MPs for ministerial positions. ඉතින් ඒක එකක්. එතකොට at least when applying for the ministerial post. එතකොට පස්වෙනි එක තමයි ඒ ප්‍රොෆෙසර් දිසානායක ටෝක් එකෙන් තුනේ voters right to recall elected politicians. ඒකටත් සිස්ටම් එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. දැනට එහෙම සිස්ටම් එකක් ලංකාවේ නැහැ. එතකොට ඊට පස්සේ ඒ ඩිස්කෂන්ස් එක අතරේ මේ දෙක ගැන ලොකු විස්තරයක් කතාවක් ආවා FPP. FPP කියන්නේ first past the post system. ඒකයි ඊට පස්සේ proportional representation system කියලා ඒකත් ගැන කතාවට ඇතුණා. ඉතින් ඒ ගැන මම පොඩි විස්තරයක් කරන්නම්. එතකොට first past the post system. ඒකේ only reflects the simple majority, not all votes contribute to the outcome. මේක බලන්න දැන් 14 දෙනෙක් ඉල්ලුවා නම් එක district එකක එක්කෙනෙකුට තමයි කතර ගහන්නේ. ඒක කතර ගහුවාම vote for one option. එහෙම කරාම දැන් මේ වගේ තත්ත්වයක් ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් blue candidate 140ක් ඡන්ද ලැබෙනවා. yellow candidate ලැබෙනවා 130ක්. එතකොට purple එකට 120ක්, salmon color එක 110ක්. එහෙම බැලුවාම මේ system එකට elect වෙන්නේ මේ blue MP තමයි. හැබැයි blue MP ට තියෙන 140ක්. එතකොට 160ක් අයගේ votes විනාශ වෙලා. එතකොට ඒක ගණන් ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒකින්ද තමයි මේ first past the post system එකේ තියෙන weakness එක. එතකොට ඒකින්ද තමයි මේ 1970 election වල 95% of the seats went to one party. ඒක තමයි හේතුව. හැබැයි 95% කට්ටිය ඡන්දේ පාටි එකට දුන්නේ නිසා නෙවෙයි මේක උනේ. මේ සිස්ටම් එකේ වර්ධන නිසා. ඉතින් ඒක හරි ගස්සන්න කියලා මේ proportional representation system ගැන කතා කරනවා. That means almost all votes cast contribute to the result. ඒ කියන්නේ proportional representation එකේ තියෙන්නේ a voting system in which the share of seats a party wins matches the share of votes it receives. එතකොට පාර්ටි එකකට ලැබෙන seats ප්‍රමාණය තමන් ලබාගත්ත ඡන්ද ප්‍රමාණයේ හැටියට තමයි proportion. ඉතින් එතකොට හැම vote එකකම මොකක් හරි value එකක් තියෙනවා, count එකක් වෙනවා. එතකොට මේ members of parliament select වෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ වගේ තත්ත්වයක් තමයි ඒකේ ඇති වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒක අර ඉස්සෙල් FPP system එකට වැඩිය හොඳයි. එතකොට හැබැයි ඒ වුණාට එක එක රටවල් එක එක දේවල් කරලා තියෙනවා. දැන් මේ FPP system එකෙත් තව ඒවා තියෙනවා single winner districts කියලා තියෙනවා. vegetarian system, multi winner districts කියලා එක එක රටවල් එක එක දේවල් කරනවා මේ විදිහට. දැන් මේ colors වලින් බලා ගන්න පුළුවන් ඒ රටවල් වල තියෙන systems. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ සිස්ටම් එකත් ගොඩක් රටවල් වල තියෙනවා. හැබැයි එක එක විදියට ඒව ඕල්ටර්නේට් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මොඩිෆයි කරලා එහෙම නැත්නම් ටින්කර් කරලා තියෙනවා ලංකාවේ වචනෙන් කියනවා. ඒතකොට ප්‍රොපෝෂනල් සිස්ටම් එක තත් ගොඩක් රටවල් වල තියෙනවා. දැන් මෙතන තියෙනවා ආජන්ටිනාවේ තියෙනවා, මෙක්සිකෝ තියෙනවා. ඒ ප්‍රොපෝෂනල් සිස්ටම් එකත් අපෙත් තියෙන මේ බ්ලූ පලේ එක ප්‍රොපෝෂනල් සිස්ටම් එකක් කියලා තමයි අපෙත් තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මික්ස් සිස්ටම් එකක් තියෙනවා, අදර් සිස්ටම් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මෙහෙම බලනකොට මේ රටවල් පොඩක් බලන්න. දැන් මේ ප්‍රොපෝෂනල් රිප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එක පාවිච්චි කරන. ඒ කියන්නේ වැඩි ටින්කරින් නැතුව පාවිච්චි කරන රටවල් ටික බලන්න. මේ බැලුවාම මේ රටවල් වලින් මම නිල් පාට දැම්මා රටවල් 4ක්. දැන් මේ රටවල් 4 දිහා බලන්න ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඒ ප්‍රොපෝෂනල් සිස්ටම් එක. corruption perception index. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ රටවල් වල corruption perception index 80ට වැඩි. ඒ කියන්නේ best anti corrupt countries in the world. දෙවෙනි එක human development කිව්වහම ඒක health indicators, education indicators and income indicators තුනම එකතු කරාම index එක හොඳම 0.8 වලට වැඩි. ඒ කියන්නේ very high අය තමයි මේ රටවල් 4. එතකොට තුන්වෙනි එක global peace index එක most peaceful countries තමයි මේ rate එක 1.3 වලට වඩා අඩු අය. ඒගොල්ලෝ most peaceful countries ඒත් මේ රටවල් 4ම ඒකට ගැබ් වෙනවා. එතකොට හතරවෙනි එක තමයි highest per capita GDP. දැන් අපේ GDP එක per capita is about $3,000. දැන් තමාට ඊටත් වැඩි අඩු ඇති. ඒ වුණාට මේ රටවල් හතරෙම GDP එක $50,000ට වැඩි. හැම per capita income. එතකොට proportional system එක හරියට පාවිච්චි කරාම ඒකේ වරදක් තියෙනවා කියලා දැන් පේන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද හේතුව ඒකෙන් මේ ලෙවල් එකම ඇචීව් කරගන්න පුළුවන් නිසා. ඒ රටවල් කරලා තියෙන නිසා. එතකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ දැනට තියෙනවා proportional representation system එකක් together. හැබැයි අපි ටින්කර් කරලා තියෙන preference vote එකක් දාලා මනාපේ system එකක්. Now this has led to a gradual deterioration of the political culture with voters being pushed into individual centric rather than policy centered approach. එතකොට මේක අපිට ඉන්ට්‍රොඩියුස් කරලා මේක ගැන කතා කරා බර්නාඩ් ෆර්නැන්ඩෝ ගිය සුමානේ නොවැම්බර් 13 වෙනිදා. ඉතින් ඒකෙන් කතා කරලා ඒ කතා කරපු ඒවා කොටසක් තමයි අපිට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් උනේ. ඒ ටිකෙන් දැනගත්ත දේවල් ටිකත් මම සමරයිස් කරා. මොකද අපි ඒක වැදගත් නිසා. එතන අපේ current proportional representation system එක ඒ මනාසපේ system එකේ තියෙන arithmetic එක මෙහෙමයි. national seats කියලා 29ක් තියෙනවා. ඒක 113ක්. ඒක ලොකු ප්‍රමාණයක්. එතකොට 196ක් MPsලා සිලෙක්ට් වෙනවා 160කට. electorates තියෙන 160යි MPsලා 196ක්. ඒකෙන් එතකොට 22ක් එන්නේ bonus seats හැටියට. ඒ කියන්නේ 110ක් තියෙන්නේ bonus seats. ඒ bonus seats වලින් ඒක boost the winner making 2/3 mandatory. දැන් මේ bonus seats ලැබුණාම winnerට තව ප්‍රමාණයක් ලැබෙනවා වැඩිපුර. ඒ වැඩෙන ප්‍රමාණය හැටියට දැන් 2/3 කියලා ගන්නකොට පාර්ලිමේන්තු එකේ ඒක මොකරියක් වෙනවා මෙහෙම වෙනකොට. එතකොට minimum district vote requirement කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා දැන් තියෙන මේ මනාප system එකේ. එතකොට 105ට වැඩි ඡන්දෙ ගත්ත අයගේ votes ටික ඔක්කොම discarded. එහෙම වුණාම වෙන්නේ මේකෙන් votes ටිකක් waste වෙන එකක් වෙනවා. ඒක හරි. ඒ වුණාට ඒක තව එකක් introduce කරලා තියෙනවා අපේ අයට මේ decoy candidates ලා දාන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ තමන් ඡන්දෙ ඉල්ලනවා ඒ වුණාට අනිත් එක්කෙනාගේ ඡන්දෙ කඩන්න තව දෙන්නෙක් තුන් දෙනෙක් දානවා. දැම්මහම ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් ඡන්ද ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙනවා. එහෙම අඩු වුණාම percentage එක වැඩි වුණාම මේ bonus seat උත් වැඩි වෙනවා. MPsලා ප්‍රමාණයත් වැඩි වෙනවා. ඉතින් එහෙම කටයුතුකුත් තියෙනවා. එතකොට a large number of unaccounted votes in the second round of seat determination on the district basis. මේකෙන් තමයි democracy එක අපේ democracy වගේ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට this has damaged the democratic representation we expect in a proportional voting system. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට proportional voting system එකක් කියලා තියුණාට අපි මේක විනාශ කරගෙන තියෙන එක අතකට. එතකොට මනාප system එකේ තියෙන problem එක. එතකොට original proportional system එක proportional representation system 1978 එකේ introduce කරපු මේකේ තියෙන්නේ had the district party candidate list in merit order as an integral adjunct. ඒ වුණාට 1981 ේදී මේ original merit list preference එක preference voting system එක දාලා වෙනස් කරා. වෙනස් කරාම this pushed the voters to be individual centric for personal benefit. එතකොට ඒක උනේ without first heeding the policy manifestos of the contesting parties. දැන් ඒක කරාම as a result over the time the voters elected sentenced murderers, drug lords, sand miners, fraudsters, bribe takers, village thugs, actors, actresses, sportsmen and communalists, including vandalism promoters of the sacred parliament. So they ignored party manifestos and sidelined even hardworking, experienced, genuine politicians. So I think end result, so we saw the end result. Sri Lanka declared bankrupt. What happens to a country with this when it defaults? So misery for the public. So this is where we ended up with this. So this is why we are discussing this. And today, Bernard Fernandez is here and he's going to talk his second part of his presentation today. And I hope that there will be a little time for us discussion as well, because we had no time for discussion last time. And I think he will allow us time for discussion.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think your introduction was so good that I don't have to speak of anything about that aspect of that you presented. I can straight away go plunge into the next slides of starting with this second objective of an election. I think if you will recall last time, I was talking about 14, 15 system changes, out of which the primary one was from a point of view of a sovereign voter was the accuracy of the seat determination, for which purpose equality of vote is very important. For a small country like ours, though we are multi-ethnic and multiracial and multilingual, despite that, the whole theme of this presentation of mine is based on Sri Lankanness, getting Sri Lankanness through the election system, getting it confirmed and demonstrated. So leaving that first one, the primary one, since we discussed, I'll come to the secondary objective of election, that is to ensure, as we discussed earlier, this yes. Ensure election of political professionals as people's representatives to achieve the objective of an election, because any exercise must have an objective. So this is the secondary objective we are going to discuss. Last time also we discussed some of these aspects in different ways. So now, since they are now I have put into slide form, so we can more succinctly explain this. Now, for this purpose, now if you, I think you all are with me in looking at the screen. Straight away, what I am saying is, first do away with the preference voting system. As Professor mentioned earlier, preference voting system has actually prostituted the pure proportional representation system because of that adjunct. And as you know, I have put it in capitals, optional. Preference voting is optional. You are not required, compulsorily required to exercise that optional preference vote. If all people boycott marking the optional preference voting, then you will have only the main result of the party of the vote that you have cast, casted to the particular party. So that is with one cross you can come from the polling booth without casting the optional the preference voting preference vote. So moment you do that, because I wanted to show the immediate benefits for the benefits of the normal simple voter, so that they will know these are the advantages that we are going to accrue from these system changes. The electoral process will instantly become very much simpler, because now, as you know, we get the election results only the following day morning start coming, because they have to count the preference votes also. So here, no counting of the preference votes, straight away the party, what you call, ballot counting people, the counting people will have to count only the ballots cast for the party only. So so much of workload is taken off. Then expenditure, time and energy spent by election department will come down drastically, because no preference vote. Then main election result can be announced before midnight. Then the total election exercise will be very environment friendly, because there's no need for these preference vote battles. There's no rivalry among inter-party rivalry also there, inter-party as well as intra-party. So all those things will not be there, because straight away the election result will be announced based on the votes as per the proposed PR system. Then let's go to the next slide. Secondly, now having if the equality of votes was maintained, now the result is out, election result is out. The party-wise proportionately the number of seats that each party has got is determined. Now what we had in second item is who is going to sit on these seats, 225. We'll take the parliamentary election. Then for that purpose also the election commission or the authorities should ensure, all this time it has not happened. That's why it is called a system change. They have to ensure that people who are coming on to the contest are political professionals, because we didn't have all these years for 74 years. Now we have failed in that. So now this is why we call it a system change, and we want political professionals to come. How are they going to come? Most of the people, they just mention, okay, we should have professionals coming in. But I have gone a step further mile to explain the methodology of adapting it. Methodology. Then in the parliament pieces, the NEC means National Election Commission, because they have a lot of work to do, because that's a commission, independent commission. They have a lot of space to do several changes, whatever they want. So compulsory, stipulate compulsory. Now all this time you will, I'll come to that. But people were just giving guidelines only, best practices in the parliament, and some guidelines. That the guideline one came on March 12, 2015 election, where all parties signed the declaration to follow when they are selecting their candidates, to follow certain criteria. But they didn't have legal teeth. So as a result, we know what happened. Same thing continued. And this same for the people who have been contesting right throughout came again, despite the all-party declaration that was signed by all party leaders. But ultimately, what happened, because of lack of legal teeth, there was no opportunity for the election officials to reject a nomination, because of they don't have the professional qualification. No. So that was not there. That's why I am saying you have to have a mandatory criteria, set of mandatory criteria imposed on the parties when they are selecting their candidates. So towards this end, I am saying, for that purpose, parties must be strengthened to function as registered corporate bodies, and they should have their constitutions. Even those constitutions also should incorporate this, that they are going to follow the NEC methodology, NEC instructions when they are going to select candidates, not at the whims and fancy of the party leaders or the party hierarchy. So this is a system change. Now parties will be compelled to follow these instructions, because if they don't follow and go and give their nominations, they will be rejected. But I will just give more details of how to set about it. Then the simplicity requirements of Article 90, that is now something to do with the Constitution. Article 90 says, as I said last time also, any simple voter can contest as a parliamentary candidate. But Article 89 and 91, they give certain negative requirements, which I will show in a different way. Those negative requirements were put in that party 2015 March 12 declaration. In a more simpler manner, they have indicated. What is given in the constitution is little difficult to understand. But in other words, they have given it in the all-party declaration. We'll come to that. These are the mandatory minimum eligibility criteria as a sovereign voter. I thought that this criteria, I mean, we can't go to extremes. So I have come to a middle path and given this criteria. I am saying all party, it should be in addition to the all party declaration prepared by actually referral organization was spearheading this program. And I'll come, next slide, I will show that. So in the meantime, so these are the ones that have to be added. These are the new ones. That is covering the educational and professional qualifications and so on. As you can read, minimum passes at least 2 subjects or A level. With it, you are given 3 attempts. In today's context, it is not a tall order, no? So it is very important because we like to see that all these people who are coming there should have had a very good school education. But that is where you started, you start to learn how to behave, how your courtesy, manners, and all that will have to come from the school. So it is important to complete at least 13. We know some of the MPs who are their parliamentarians have not even gone up to 8th or 9th. අධ්‍යාපන පසක දාලා. ඒ වගේ අපිට මේක හරියටම නීතිගත කරලා දාන්න ඕන requirement එකක් හැටියට. A minimum 1 year diploma certificate from an acceptable professional body. So that means after you leave school, maybe with A-level you don't go to the university, but at least then such people should have followed at least a 1 year diploma certificate from an acceptable professional body. It can be any professional certificate, diploma certificate. It is important to here what's happened is it is important to integrate into society from school, because after A-levels and you are not going to university, but still you have to integrate into society by going through a professional diploma, minimum one year, having followed that, then with that integrating with the society, because you are coming across new youth school leavers from different areas, and then you some kind of actually some of the people I have learned, I have seen that people who couldn't talk even a word of English up to A-level, when they go to this kind of diploma programs, ultimately they come out with people who can speak good English. Should be below 60 years as at the date of closing nominations. This 60-year age limit. Earlier in my write-ups, I used to say 70. Then I went down to 65. Now after Aragale, I put it at 60. Yes, so because at the time of, at least at the time of day closing nominations, you should be below 60, because if you win, then you can serve up to 65, 5 years. So at least you can have a stint of 5 years when you go up to 65. So taking that into account only, and this is also the government retiring age also. But politicians, of course, I put it that so that they are going beyond the government requirement limit, so they can at least we can allow them to go up to 65. Anyway, these things can be changed, but what I'm saying is these criteria should be there. These numbers can be, it can be 55, or that if you want more youth to come, you can make it even 55. It doesn't matter. Next time is letter of undertaking producer assets and liabilities declaration. So there are different formats for this assets and liability declaration that is in the public domain. But for this purpose, NEC should give a specimen, because everything has to be standardized. You can't give assets and declarations according to the whims and fancies of the parties. So things has to be standardized, it is up to the NEC to be okay. You give your assistant license according to this requirement, then only they can compare and they can see, and it's easy to monitor and for them to record also. So that is within 7 days prior to closing nomination, not that the time of selecting. Before the days nomination is, there's a closing date for nomination. So within 7 days they must be, so that it will be as fresh as possible, as the real assets and liability position, the latest one you can get when you file it within 7 days. Then next one is a letter of undertaking, produce a good health certificate from registered medical practitioner issued within 1 month before the interview. Before they come for the interview, they must bring a good health certificate, because people are voting, we must be voting at least at the time of when they go to the parliament, they must be in good health, because anybody can lose their good health at any time, but at least to ensure, because the voting process is a very expensive process, and so even good health is an important factor. Then now we will come to those negative things that, as I mentioned earlier, that March 12 movement 2015, they got some points from the constitution and they simplified it and put it like this. These are what I told is these are also primary requirements, like the one that I told about the education and professional qualifications. So should be a practical person who is sensitive to the entire community, because the PAFRL 2015, the party all party declaration was updated in 2020, and it was held at BMICH, and they updated and put it to the websites. So should be practical person who is sensitive to the entire community, as a national thinking, is aware of international politics, and had the ability to formulate laws and policies and manage finance. They have put it in a very broad manner. They have mentioned about this professional abilities. Should not be a person who has served a jail sentence for a crime, or a person who has received a suspended sentence. So this year, I think last time also this one mentioned about murderers were coming into the parliament. So these people will not be eligible to apply. Should not be a person who has been proven guilty of bribery or corruption, and should be acceptable to society and person of good character. Be cautious when considering those alleged of bribery or corruption. So these are things that we have been longing for so many years as voters, to represent us in the parliament. Should not be a person who is engaging or had engaged in the past in trades such as alcohol, drugs, gambling, casinos, prostitution, that are detrimental to the well-being of the country. So these are all self-explanatory. Should not be a person who is engaging or had engaged in trade which destroyed the ecological life support system, that causes destruction to the environment. Yes, those who are not environment-friendly people should not go as our representatives. Should not be a person who had entered into financial agreements prejudicial to the country before becoming a people's representative. And as a people's representative who has abused power and entered into financial agreements with the government, or has been a party to such an agreement. So these are also very vital requirements, though they are negative requirements. Candidate should be either a resident or have an amiable relationship with residents of the area they represent. Yes, this is also generally there. Though it's a district lists that are coming up, so at least within the district or the electorate, they should be there. Religious leaders should not be nominated by political parties, because they deserve the respect of the entire population, irrespective of political differences. So this updated one carries this religious leaders one was not there in the earlier one. So that's after 2015, there were religious also there in the parliament. Okay. Then what are the benefits the outcome of this secondary objective of the election? These are the benefits. Ultimately, 1 second. I think I have. No, yes. Now, as I just finished talking about the eligibility criteria. That is before they pass. This is the first step. First step is this is called job specifications. When you apply for a job, you must have met this criteria, eligibility criteria. That is one. If you have the eligibility criteria, then you are called for an interview. This management style, any organization, when they want to recruit people, this is what they follow. They put an advertisement and they give you the job specifications. Then job description is another matter. So job specifications are given. Then they are those who meet the eligibility requirements are called for an interview. So this interview also must be spoon-fed to the parties, because all this whole process has to be standardized, because each party can't have their own ways of doing it, because for the voters, we are taking the entire country into account. So all parties that are contesting, coming into the picture, should have followed the same process. So this is why, and ultimately, it will have to be given legal teeth for them to comply. Then in my view, this is as a sovereign voter, I thought of this, and then I thought these are things that we expect from a representative of us. He must be in the parliament. Actually, these traits are marking system we have to follow. That is why it's called a structured interview system, where you different traits, you adduce marks, 10, 15, 20, like that, depending on the importance of that particular trait. So the NEC will have to give even the marks allocation, so that it will be standardized by all parties. Will have to follow the same. Multilingual skills, if one party A gives 5, another party can give 10. So all parties must give multilingual skills 5. Then computer literacy is also important in the present context. In ability to select best alternative among many options and present facts logically. So this is the one that the previous former chairman of the National Election Commission, Mr. Mahinda Deshapriya, has told like this. I mentioned last time. He says they must have that kind of knowledge and what you call not debating ability, critical ability to analyze and decide amongst the alternatives. Many options, and then present facts logically. The presentation skills also, not debating skills. More importantly, to present facts logically, because when you have debating skills, what happens is they will be debating till the cows come home. Always they come out with different arguments, and ultimately what is fruitful and constructive doesn't happen. What you need is you must be able to present facts logically. Then you are given, they should give marks for each of these items. Then expertise in political science, law, economics, accountancy, banking, and political professionalism. To meet the objective of the parliament, this knowledge is very essential. So in my view, all these views are in the eyes of a sovereign voter. Okay. Then political professionalism here I am mentioning is, to be a professional, one will have to be either he should have that kind of competence in the particular field. Is professional. Then another one, according to the dictionary definition, a person who gets paid, whose livelihood is profession, is a particular field, maybe banking field, legal profession, like that, and for which they get paid. That is their livelihood. Then other one is, there are through experience you become a professional. That is why I said political professionalism. Now there are some politicians who don't have the technical qualifications and academic qualifications, but through experience they have gained political professionals. They are also called professionals. So some of the, as somebody mentioned last time, people like Premadasa, Sirimao, DS and all that, they got that political acumen, professionalism. So they also can be counted. So we have to give marks for this also. Now, actually, this area will carry more marks. This area, people for these areas, you carry more marks, because that is a very important thing, important aspect, important requirement to fulfill their duties to achieve the objectives of the parliament. That is, as you know, I have mentioned parliament objectives, basically lawmaking. They are called lawmakers, or they are called legislators. So their lawmaking is very important aspect. Then secondary, they must know some finance. Then for which they should know their economics, they should know their accountancy and banking. So because all these areas are very critical to achieve the objectives of the parliament. Overall character suitability. Now the third garden is overall character suitability. They must be a good character. Otherwise, people with not good characters are the people who engage in all kinds of vices and all that. So the overall character suitability based on attitudes, and they must have attitude, not selfish attitude of making the best out of the parliament for you selfishly, but that good attitude towards the country. Then attributes such as country first, honesty, they must be very honest. We require them. We don't want this kind of people who present not over the 74 years. All these people, they didn't follow these principles. As a result, so we have to mandate these requirements for people who are coming as candidates for election. Honesty, high morals, and social integration. Social integration is not loners. People should be moving with the society, and they should have some kind of having joined the welfare organizations and all that. That kind of social integration should be there. So all marks will be given for all this. So it can be 100 marks, 200 marks, 400 marks, that doesn't matter. So long as it is, that's why I said only thing is NEC will have to specify the marks also. So in order to ensure that all parties are following the same pattern, same principles in selecting their candidates. So it's not for the party hierarchy to determine. This is they must follow this, otherwise the voters will not be satisfied. Then as a result of that earlier, what I just mentioned, the eligibility criteria and the interview marks. Ultimately, it's the interview mark. Only eligible people were interviewed. No. So interview marks is the criterion. You prepare the merit list based on that from top down. Highest marks will be number one, like that 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order. They will have to prepare the list. Then, as a result of which benefits are, we will have lawyers, accountants, economists, bankers, and wise and experienced political professionals I mentioned. So they also are there. Competent in selecting the best alternative among many and interpreting laws, policies, national decentralized budgets, etc. That is the function of the parliament. No, being main objectives of the national parliament in large numbers. They must come in large numbers. Now, present parliament has about 74 of these people, but they are not enough, not large enough to balance with the rest. 2/3 otherwise. Only 75 means only 1/3. Will produce country first constructive and consensual debates. So as a result of the majority of these professionals being in the parliament, you will find that they will be very consensual and they will be constructive and maintaining it. And also they will definitely, we can expect a better decorum in the parliament. This is why these Aragade people also wanted to, the attitudinal change is a main expectation of sovereign voters. So as we have seen what has been happening in the parliament, you know, all kinds of things that normal voter won't expect them to do. Then hackneyed terms such as a result of this, terms such as unstable government, hung parliament, bonus seats, minimum percentage, crossovers, deal politics, 2/3 majority, all those will become irrelevant because we are having a professional set of people in the parliament who will consider country as number one. So all their things are geared to do that. So though they are sitting in, there's a divide, though there is a divide, still all have one common goal of country first. Whatever they do, the laws are made, everything ultimately for the betterment of the country. Then simple voters will not be, as a result, simple voters will not be asked to elect horses from list of donkeys, because now we know if this process is in place, voters don't have to worry because all those people in the list are horses, so not donkeys. Then the next item is, now there is another requirement to be filled. We have to now this women and youth participation. So how to ensure that? This was even 2018 election, they wanted women passing, that could not be achieved. That ultimately that numbers went up to from 3,000 to 8,000. It went up at the local government elections where they adopted these women ratios. And they couldn't do that. Ultimately, that number went up, as I mentioned. Now, PR and very nicely, I think Professor explained the pros and cons of PR and FPP. So I'm not setting it aside because there are very strong proponents, strong camps for FPP and PR. So for which purpose, instead of going by ratios, 34, 35, 65, 40, 60, you can have any type of ratios, but those are not scientific, as I mentioned the other day. We will, very easy thing is there. We give it to the parties. You do the way you like. But any party that likes the FPP system, and they have their voters who are supporting that kind of system, they can send their merit list according to the FPP list. Electorate by this, they have to give, that's all. In my view, NEC should not worry about who and who should be coming into this place, that place. NEC has now already done its major work. That is, number one is they have ensured the equality of vote and the counting is accurate. So everything is proportionally given. Number one. Then number two, now we have gone through this selection process, interview and eligibility criteria. I mean, the real work of the NEC finishes there. The NEC should now, once the seats are known and once the quality of the people are known, NEC has done its job. Now it is for the parties to put their people into the seats. So the only thing is NEC has ensured they must come in merit order. You follow? So to ensure that for the women to come in, we had to ensure, since that is some kind of additional requirement, extra requirement to put in women, that this is the way that, in my view, that we have been doing. Even at the bank, you give a what is called, it is a pre-interview mark. Before coming for the interview, women and youth will be given allocation of marks, extra allocation of marks, to ensure that they vie with others, but with this extra mark, they'll be able to come up, go up the ladder in the ranking. So a new youth representative, as a result, now if we put the 20% requirement for women and youth, among every 5 nominees, there must be 1 woman and 1 youth. Youth means the definition, I think, accepted presently, I think they say youth below 35. These things can change, but so the 20% also can be changed. But what I'm saying, I thought this was more practical. Then you have 40% women and youth in the parliament, 60%. So some kind of a balance is there. So it's not a very big paradigm shift, but this kind of allocation will ensure that women and youth are also there in the parliament in the required percentage. A new youth representation becomes mandatory. Decision making becomes more rational with a balanced mix of representative. You have the youth, you have the women, and you have the more experienced men also. Okay. Then accommodating on, now I come to this one, FPP PR, how to do this. Because the MMB system is, even I have not understood. I have listened to some discussions in the TV also. Even the people who were the discussions themselves could not explain it properly. This overhang and very complex method, just to appease the FPPPR camps. So easiest way is, we ask the NEC should allow, Election Commission should allow parties to select any one of these lists. There are 3 types of lists. One is people who support in the PR camp, they can select this list. But all lists must be shown in merit order, because for that's to benefit the voter, because then voter will know these people have followed a very scientific method and they are given marks. This is how it is done in the corporate sector and anywhere. You have the merit order list and we want to draw the line. We want 15 people, for 15 will get the promotion or whatever. And recruitment all the same. The best people will get. And in the district wise, that is PR system people camp. Then the FPP camp, they have only 160. No, I think Professor Jula also explained that parties can assign more than one candidate in their electoral list. So this is, I will tell you, voter will see this list, and when they are making a decision, they will take this also into consideration in addition to the election manifesto. Then all this time, the FPP PR system didn't take into account the central pool mechanism of JVP. Only FPP and PR system they were considering, but JVP was sidelined there. Now here they also can give, because JVP what they did was, I think till the election before last, they were adopting a central pool method. That means because they didn't contest for all the seats, and they had their list of merit list on their own. So if they win 10 seats, they are free to give that 10 people. That's a very democratic system way. If they have won 10 seats, because they are not going by district wise or electorate wise, because they were not contesting in all seats, so they have a central pool list. From the central pool, they say we have won 10 seats, one in Matara, we put one. That is up to them. What I'm saying is, election commission need not worry about those things. That is left to the party. Then party should prepare. Then I am going little beyond just to explain the methodology, because just to ensure that this is an acceptable methodology from a voter's point of view. To do that, this is the best way I thought they should follow. Party should prepare separate preliminary district electoral list for 196 MPs and one separate list for 29 nationalists. Also, they must follow the same procedure. They must do the interviews, and then they also must prepare a merit list even for national members, because everything has to be transparent. Everything has to be transparent so that voters will have confidence in the system. 29 nationalist members also district or electorate basis, because when you prepare an electorate basis, you can always have it under a district, no problem. So that is easy. With a few extra names in merit order, because always, even under the constitution, I think they allow for 3 names. So that is not a big thing, and they have to add, because there can be cases, there can be what you call deaths. For various reasons, some people who are in the list can go out, so you must have other people down the line to take that place. So you can add few extra names. That is not a big thing. Then this should be published in the now. This is why it becomes acceptable to the people. First, they can't just do that and keep that and give them. They must go before the people and publish in the press, covering at least one single Tamil English newspaper to allow objections, if any, by public before a date specified by the NAC. NAC will say, you have to publish your preliminary after finishing your interviews and the merit lists are prepared. You must publish it in the press with the knowledge of the NAC. NAC should receive a copy of that. Either NEC can do it or the parties can do it. That is up to them. That's another detail. So once that is done, the public are given straight away the preliminary list, and they can look at the list and say, look here, I say this man is a rogue. No, oh my God, he's like all kinds of, you mentioned about various people, no, categories. So they may be in those categories. So people can object in the preliminary. So then final list to be registered by party secretary. Final list on or before the nominated date, certifying the correctness together with an affidavit as per specification of the NEC again. So the preliminary list has to be finalized after receiving the objections through the NEC. The NEC will say, look here, these names are not eligible, so remove them and you give the final list. So then only the final list will be prepared, and on the nominations day, they must certify correctness. There again, the affidavits, each party can't give the affidavit that they want to give. They must give the affidavits, again, a standardized document prepared by the NEC. NEC will say, this is the type of affidavit, that means you are vouching for, by affidavit, you are vouching for the correctness like this. Okay. Then if any okay, if any lapses or disqualifications are observed, the returning officer can allow rectification within the closing date or reject nominations of such lists or candidates. Here again, those now presently at the time of if a returning officer at the on the nomination date finds some mistake, the date is wrong or whatever, then entire thing is taken off. Entire thing is rejected. So we are allowing more democracy. I think we should not just reject like that. That hard work should not be just put to the waste basket. So we must be able to more democratically and allow them some period of time to rectify. But before the nomination date, closing date, they must give. Closing date or reject nomination, such candidates, all this. If disqualifications are declared after the election, then they can be challenging courts through election petition, and then successful parties can name a corresponding candidate of his choice. Now we have the other list. No, if a party is not eligible because of this election petition, then the party only has to nominate the next person in the merit list without any problem. No by-elections are necessary. Voters are assured that horses are named as candidates. Now voters will know all this because now they have gone through the middle. The voters have seen the preliminary list. Voters have seen the final list. Now they know that all horses are there in the list. Then costly by-elections can be avoided. Electoral system means confidence of voters. That is very important. Benefits. This method is simple and flexible. It allows all relevant proponents to meet their expectations. That is FPP, PR, and central pool, all their own expectations, they can put the way they according to their own list. If they want this 196 electorates, they have only 160. No, for bigger electorates, they can put that balance 36 and put them, and they can. That is up to them. That is not a that should. What I'm saying is NEC should not intervene in that process. This is up to them. NEC has done this job now already. So number of seats remain fixed. So this 65, 35, all these overhangs, all those things are not necessary. In my view, in a small country like ours, maybe that other countries are doing because they can have afford to have complex systems, but we can't do that because we are a small country and we have voters are not very educated, or so we have simple voters. So to cater to that, that's why I always say we must have a model of our own. 20 national members do have to be selected in the same manner. They also must be, we have to, Article 99 in the Constitution says community representation, but I think they should have special expertise also. I didn't see that in the Constitution clause. So anyway, those had to be reviewed. Then the district-wise final list to be prepared is same thing as for the 190. 29 also follow suit, should. Having MPs to meet special object benefits, it provides a transparent method to satisfy the voters who will also recognize the quality of national list members when making their voting decisions. Because some people take that also into account, who are in the national list. So that gives opens a window for them also when they exercise in their voting. Having MPs to meet special objectives augments national reconciliation and special expertise requirement in the parliament. As you say, as I say, because the multi-community representation is important. That is where we don't go for unequal vote, we go for equal vote, but this kind of preference to the 29 national list is useful in my view. Ban crossover. I think the last time several speakers came up about this. I have been telling this for the last so many years. We must stop this crossover mockery. Allow member vacancies to be filled by any corresponding names also. If a crossover, it so happens somebody is rejected, the party list will come into play, and they can the parties should be even mindset to be more democratic and allow even not going to the merit list. Since all are horses, party can be given according to their present requirement. Sometimes even in the merit list, good people are there. According now, say for example, is a lady was ejected. A woman was ejected because of the petition. So you have to appoint a woman. If a youth was rejected, you have to appoint a youth corresponding one has to be appointed. Prevent deal politics. As a result, you won't have deal politics and restores collective voter concerns and sovereignty as principles. We are the principals or the individual conscience of MPs who are only their agents. So you can't, just because MP has his own convictions, you can't allow, because voters have already voted him into the parliament. It allows more flexibility to parties when filling vacancies. So as I mentioned, the flexibility is there. Previous changes in balance of power created by the sovereign model for a specific period by UCL. Crossovers have been, as I say, all of you know. So this crossovers is a mockery. Fierce and high cost by-elections also become redundant when this method is there. Impose specific limit to party campaign financing. I think this was discussed last time also. I mentioned about it. We need this, because otherwise some of the parties they always ask for elections, saying because of the unequal field. There's no level playing field. They know for sure they have the seats in their pocket because they are throwing the money. So we have to fix party limits. In my view, that limits can be fixed. Now, say if there are 16 million registered voters, NEC has to determine that. But one way of which I feel is, if you set apart 10 rupees per voter, then 160 million can be the campaign financing limit. So NEC can decide that. That is one way of looking at it. 10 rupees per. So all parties will be allowed 160 million. So the only thing is that is why the level playing field, and whether it is small or big party, they can spend up to that amount for their campaigns. Then then campaign financing can be easily monitored by the authority. Then easy, because the party straight away you are given the limit, and it can be monitored, because I am saying party head officers have to run the election campaign. Then very easy to inspect their records and determine, and monitoring is easy. As well as the quality of their selected candidates while highlighting the choice of list. Even the choice of list also, they can say the party hierarchy when they are doing the campaign, they have everything in their fingertips, no? Manifesto in their fingertips. Then why they did the interviews, they know these are the people. So they can always say, let us go FPP. Let us vote. So then FPP means they can have their MPs sitting in the parliament in that form. Deserving candidates without financial backing can come forward. Now, say some parties based purely on the monetary aspect, pecuniary strength, they select candidates. But as a result, good candidates who don't have the financial strength, they get locked out. So here, when this party campaign finance limit is there, they don't. These people will stand a better chance to get selected as a candidate. To reach ultimate levels of Sri Lankanness. Now, this is an area I mentioned that also. Percentage arithmetic to the constitutionally specified number of cabinet and state ministers, so that seat winning parties will be represented in the cabinet. This is the essence of Sri Lankanness. Because all this time we are saying that because I have mentioned there, according the same way that we elected the 29 nationalists, same method, proportionately, depending on the number of seats that you have got, you get the cabinet, give them the vote for cabinet seats also. So several other parties, smaller parties will also get into the cabinet, so that it will be a national cabinet. So this promotes consensual politics, because all are collectively responsible. So nobody can run away and say, no, we were not there, we didn't decide that. So that kind of confrontational situations will not arise. A cabinet chaired by CP Nimbal will enable the country to develop in true Sri Lankan spirit. And then this reality was very much visible at Aragale grounds. I think we saw how these people all bereft of race, party, or race or creed, they were together. It removes the hackneyed single government label, so that the country can boast of a permanent national government. Now there was a camp where they say that this is a single government. So we are now saying this, so that will go off, and we'll have a permanent national, not a temporary, not an interim multi-party national government. it will be a permanent affair. So this is what the people, voters have to be educated and the politicians have to be educated. If we are really meaning transparent and good governance, all these things are there in this kind of a government. Brand election management as the main consideration of vote for voter decision. I think earlier also this was mentioned, by establishing a regulatory mechanism and an audit procedure. We must get it branded. For it to get branded, it must have good features. There must be a regulatory mechanism to ensure that the election manifesto of the winning party is implemented properly. And audit procedure also should be there. And make it a prosecutable document. I started with saying that it should be made a prosecutable document, but later then I got a feedback saying that it is very difficult to make an election manifesto a prosecutable document. Very difficult. Some legal point of view came up. So then I gave it another aspect to it and said it can be you must have regulatory mechanism and audit procedure, and or make it a prosecutable document. If legal teeth cannot be given, then we must have monitoring mechanism, regulatory authority to ensure that. So as a brand and genuine will become a primary factor for making a wise vote. So now voters will not go behind the people. Voters will go behind what is the plan for us for the next 5 years, what are you going to deliver? So educated people will go, this will be the main factor governing their decision. Due to regulatory audit mechanism, the people will have confidence in proper implementation of their expectations. These are actually one can call this as an ideal thing, but we must go in search of that ideal thing, but we will end up at least 95%. Discourage this now. I spoke of this also last time. Now how to discourage these small parties coming in numbers and getting 15 votes, 20 votes, and with so much of money spent, and this decoy thing also came in. So these things have to be, we have to put a stop to this. But you can't legally stop it. As I mentioned, the indirect way of doing it is to imposing stringent eligibility criteria and high cash deposit requirements. I mentioned this at the last minute, 338 independent parties were contested. All kinds of names and groups. If you look at go to the website, you can see the number of names of those parties. Short a ballot, then it will reduce the ballot paper size. As a result, voter confusion, because most of the voters are confused because of the length of the ballot paper. Then as a result, rejected votes will be reduced. Then it reduces cost, energy, and time wasted in total process when you have to deal with long ballot papers. It's very, very difficult. This is, of course, now presently earlier, because when I prepared this slides some time ago during 2016 and 17, also that time the executive presidency was had been there, but not in the proper way. What I am saying is make executive president a non-partisan statesman by calling for applications only from independent. He must be independent candidate, not a party man. Because that is why this whole pain of this country is because the three pillar is not functioning because of president is also part. Now I'm sure one will say America, they have the party man is executive, the president. But here our country doesn't need that type of thing if we are following the three pillar principle, because practically we have seen this now. So if we have an independent, because then actually in the executive president there is a second preference in the ballot. Second preference in the ballot. So how can you change the party when voting? If you have independent candidates, you can always go for the second preference, because then party affiliations are not taken into account. So that should be there. It is now, but anyway, I am saying since it is now proposed to abolish executive presidency, the proposed steps are given at the end. That if I have the time only, I will go into that. Then next one is transform present irreversible provincial councils to more efficient and productive bodies with additional powers, if necessary, and specific role responsibilities under the direction and supervision of the Governor General working in the provincial governors. So as a result,
Bernard, can I interrupt for a second? Because the provincial council issue is a major issue that probably need discussion separately, isn't it?
Yes.
So do you think we should give this? It's taken 1 hour 10 minutes now. It's probably
Okay.
better to discuss what you discuss
Yes,
about
I
the
don't mind. Oh,
main
now
system, and
I think I'm
then
coming to the last slide with this.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
this I am going to because since I am dealing with electoral system to complete the exercise, I am dealing with very lightly on the provincial councils and local government. That those two finish. Yes, that
Yeah, but
completes the
shall we do that in a different date, because there are lots of issues to be discussed in what you
no
already
problem.
presented.
No problem.
Yeah.
So what do
So if I may stop there because of the time, that's why I'm talking about this. And this is
correct?
again a different issue, and then you will lateral thinking onto this one. So shall we stop at this provincial council level, which is a different board, different things, and then go for a discussion? So if you stop
Yeah.
sharing your slide, I can allow the audience to ask questions.
So I'll have to stop sharing the slides now, is it?
No, if you say stop share the top
Stop
of
share. Yeah.
there,
Shall I do it?
you will
Shall I?
say,
Shall I?
yeah, just say stop share and then slides will go away. So you come
Fine,
up in the screen.
fine. Okay.
Well done.
Oh,
Thank you. All good. So we are ready for discussion now. I'm sure there are lots of questions to ask, and I have some, but I will ask it last. So anybody from the audience, please go forward.
yes.
Anybody to comment, please? Yeah, Kapila, you're there. Yeah. Kapila? Yes, Kapila, you can talk. I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, I think previously the legal argument brought against anyone can contest the election is that equality before the law. But my son came up with a nice argument. He said this in this country education is free. So if someone is not getting his education, then it's not an excuse to have the equality before law, because everyone is given free education. So I mean, education qualification then can be used as a criterion for picking people for the parliament. Otherwise, they will always bring this issue saying that, well, we have to have the equality before the law, or equality, equal rights. But then everyone has free education as an equal right, and if they don't get their education, that's their problem. It's not the problem of other people. You see, that's number one. Number two is, as I suggested earlier, I think if you want to become a really serious minister, you have to have those basic qualifications. I mean, required for that particular ministry. Then the parties will be forced to select field candidates who have those qualifications. Otherwise, I mean, just getting a person with some qualification is not going to do this job. We have to have the right the people who have the right qualifications. I mean, those are the two things which I wanted to just.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kapila. I think Professor Lakshman is next.
Yeah. Chula, thank you. I will take 2-3 minutes. It's a very informative presentation by Bernard. Thank you. I have a few questions. Now, regarding the educational qualifications that we just discussed, are there any country which has imposed such a rule? I'm not aware of. Entry qualifications, educational, is there any country where they have imposed such a requirement? Number one. And the pension, Bernard didn't touch upon the pension scheme. Are there any country, again, who implement the pension scheme for MPs?
Yeah.
Number two. And age restriction, number three. I would like to have a look at other countries, whether they implement a similar aspect. And then next question is, declaration of assets and liabilities should be a must for a nominating MP. Declaration of assets and liabilities. And I think the MPs should not or must not do business. In many countries, especially in countries like Sweden, it's very serious. MPs elected MPs should not do any business with the government. Now we have seen in the present government or in the past governments also, some MPs, I mean the businesses owned by these MPs take contracts, they don't complete the contract, and the money is lost and the work is not done. And nothing has been done against these people. So I think as a fundamental condition, politicians should not do business. So that's my suggestion. And then political professionals is a very good idea. As he mentioned, Ms. Bandaranayak, Ms. Premadas, and what about Modi, Prime Minister Modi in India? Ronald Reagan is an actor, so that's okay. So there we have to compromise between these strict educational qualifications and professionalism against the experience and probably track record or something like this, without rather without strictly enforcing such a thing. And okay, suppose we do this, all this system change, where would be the present MPs will go? Do you think they will simply release the things? Okay, it's a question to be answered. Yeah, those are the things I wish to draw attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lakshman. Bernard, you want to answer some of these, and then we go. There are 3 other people who raised their hands.
Especially, do they implement any other countries, these age requirements and educational requirements? I'm not aware of.
Bernard, are you there? I think he's muted again. He's not really muted on the screen. Bernard, can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. But did you hear the questions from Professor Lakshman?
Yeah. I heard. That's what I was wondering why you got muted. So now anyway.
No, so please answer if you can, or what your comments.
I can. Yeah, but I'm saying is now 74 years of experience, having this experience that we have come to this position. So this is what is. We can't, now is no more job. We must take the bull by the horns. And that is why we have to be very, everything has to be legally given to Sri Lanka. I am not, in other countries you can do it now. For that matter, even in Singapore, there are several people coming forward as professional politicians, political professionals to contest. Here it's not happening. So that is why we have to bring it by law. We have to regiment it and say, otherwise there's no way out. This is the only alternative. Unless we give this, even what you give it in right, it never happened. That's why the 2015 all-party declaration failed, because it had no legal teeth, because there was no power for election commission to reject those nominations. Anybody who is coming there, we have to accept. I mean, everything is good if people are good. If people are honest, you don't need security people. If people are all these things, if everything depends on the attitude and the practical. Now we have seen on the ground, reality is this. No, reality is our entire parliamentary system has failed. So what is the alternative? So that argument by Mr. Kapil Gurusekar, I agree with that. That is legally okay. But the thing is, we have an education system in this country. Now look at the other institutions, companies or banks or whatever. There's a system of doing it. So you have to measure your the professionalism of education, academic things only by a piece of paper. That is, a certificate has to be there. Then if you undermine that, then the entire education system will crumble. There's no point in getting a certificate, because anybody can go and I have the right, I have the democracy to do. That won't do. No, there must be a method to madness also. No? So that is why I am saying, unless we enforce this, we will be again in the same boat, and they will be giving donkeys, and we are asked to select horses. So now this is the reality.
Thanks. There's several other questions as well, Manan. Dharme, you are there next.
Thank you, Chula. I missed the last meeting, so I don't know whether you discussed. So I just want to make 3 comments here. Thank you, Mr. Bernard Fernando, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Singapore developed mainly because they worked on 3 letters: meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. That is what we don't have in our people. That is number 1.
Right.
Number 2 is, in our parliament, we have too many lawyers. Too many lawyers. What we need is the people from every sector. When it comes to energy, a lawyer can't take the decisions. When it comes to medical field or any other field, you need professional people from those. So that is something we need. We need that balance. That is the second one. Third one is, I don't know whether you will agree on this. I just want to mention about dual citizenship situation. At the moment, we have a rule in the constitution, dual citizens can't. We know why it happened. Because few wrong people came with family contacts and messed up the country. Yeah. So people wanted to get rid of that. But if you look at the whole thing, who are the people left the country? Highly educated, highly professional people went away from the country for various reasons. They have seen the world, they have the experience, but what we do from this law, we avoid them. In fact, if you look at it, because these people are the people who love the country. That is why they paid huge amount of money. Their retention of their citizenship, they are dual citizens. So I think these people are not, now they are banned to apply. We know the reason, but it is a case of human rights as well. Because they are dual citizens, they can apply. If they win, of course, they have to give up one. Otherwise, they can't be a politician. There are other problems. So obviously, and also this way, you can avoid frogs in the well situation. Yeah. Because these people have the knowledge, professionalism, seen the world, experience. Why do we cut them off? We cut them off because of a couple of people. They came through family connections. They can't speak in Sinhala. They can't speak in English. They messed it up. So we brought, Parliament brought a rule to avoid all dual citizenship. My feeling is it is not right for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dharme, for that comment. Bernard, any comments on that?
That's right. Now, as I said, now what you said is very true. This is the reason that if you look at the eligibility criteria and the interview marking system and all that, those are the interventionary methods to reduce this kind of thing. So we must get a new category of people as political professional. වෙනම කුලකයක් අපිට හඳුනාගෙන දැන් මේක තමයි අලුත් දේ. මේ system change එක තමයි මාත් කතා කරන්නේ. එතුමා කියපු එක හරියට හරි. Now we are fed up, people are desperate. ඉතින් මේ තත්ත්වයට එන්න නම් අපි මේ වගේ system එක දාලා බලන්න ඕනේ. මේ experiment, there's no other experiment in my view. We have education in our country, system in our country that is reflected through the certificates that you get, that is the academic part of it. Then expertise, you can get from different expertise, but all lawyers, what you mentioned about too many lawyers, but the lawyers or accountants or bankers, all are professionals. They are in their own field, they are professionals. As a result, they have a different mindset to look at things logically, look at things in a balanced way overall. So a lawyer need not be an environment specialist to be a minister of environment, but he has to get, with his knowledge background, he must get his people, because politicians are not the decision makers. Decision makers are the accounting officer, that is the secretary in charge of the ministry. So secondly, now the ministry, the politician must be able to get them, to get the people that he wants, the experts, to advise him. But he must not be taken for a ride now, because these are all professionals. Now, when they become these horses, What I'm saying is lawyers, professional bankers, accountants, economists, those are in their own field, they're expert. Now say, for example, Professor Chula is a medical professional, but now you are talking better than me on electoral reforms. I'm only a serving voter. So in that way, it is getting things done. So you should not be taken for a ride. That's all. So I am sure the lawyers will not be taken for a ride. The person he will have some general background, no. So that is in if there are any shortcomings in the presentation in the change methodology that I have given, then I will definitely agree to change it in a different way. Now we have stopped speaking history, no. So all this we have been doing. Now this is we have to turn a new page. So over තමයි මේ system change කියන්නේ.
Okay, Bernard, තව හතුන් දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. There are 3 other people. And I'm only talking what you taught us. I'm not a professional in politics. Ranjan, you are raised hand, Ranjan. Thank you.
Bernard, I congratulate you on your painstaking analysis.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chula. There are a few matters which I would like to mention.
Yes.
Firstly, Chula mentioned, gave the names of several countries which are very successful, highly successful democracies. I was wondering whether they have such elaborate systems, procedures to select their rulers, as elaborate as Bernard described. Bernard went into enormous amount of details for recommending Sri Lanka to select our leaders, national leaders. I was wondering whether these successful countries that Chula mentioned also have such similar procedures. I doubt it, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. If so, why is it that you see no amount of rules and regulations seem to be working in our country? That's one, to make it short. Now, secondly, I would like to take a practical case. Look at the state of our universities today. I don't think I have to explain or describe or take a lot of our time to explain the pathetic state of our universities. I think all of you know what it is like. It's shameful, disgraceful. A lot of students who qualify to enter university don't go. Actually, they don't join because they're dead scared of the criminal nature of the behavior of the undergraduates. Now, these are the people who are going to take over the leadership of our country in the next generation. What kind of country can they produce? What kind of result can they produce? If this is the criminal, you know that there are some undergraduates who have been actually charged for murder. Over 30 murders have been committed. Now, we all agree then that this situation has got to be corrected in the longer term for the greater good of our country. Do you think that the reforms recommended, reforms that we have proposed, will be able to make those corrections? These reforms will be able to put our universities back on track? I personally doubt it. Particularly if you are going to, sometimes, a country has to take bitter decisions, unpleasant decisions. Those decisions cannot be taken always democratically. You see, a certain amount of, you need a strong leader to take those decisions. Look at Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore. See, if there wasn't a strong-willed leader, I don't think Singapore would be what she is today. That is the second point. Then, with regard to the professionalism, induction of professionals into parliament. Already this cry has gone on for some time, and some attempts have been made to remedy this situation. And we see recently, in recent times, an induction of quite a few educated personnel, professors, lot of professors in parliament. But what impact are they having? What changes do we see them making? But I don't see any changes as a result of these professionals being inducted to rectify a situation that the situation the country has drawn attention to. So that is the third point.
Yeah, another point. Yeah, okay.
Then finally, I won't take longer than that. Let us also remember that in the early days of our parliamentary democracy, we had very highly qualified people, brilliant people of international standing, in the early parliaments of ours. See, but how did it decline? What is the reason for the decadence? In fact, I remember in the case of Dr. N.M. Pereira, it was mentioned that had he been at that time being in a UK citizen, he would have been the next Prime Minister of UK, produced by the Labour Party. See, so we had people of such high standing in Sri Lanka, in our Sri Lankan Parliament, but they were all failures. So this proposal that we must bring in professionals into Parliament per se, as to whether it will be helpful to solve the problems, I don't know. Chula, since there are others also waiting to talk, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ranjan. I think I would leave the university bit out because I think it's a major discussion required in relation to university, the quality of graduates, etc. So I think, Bernard, if you want to skip answering that, that's fine. Bernard, the answers to the other questions?
Yes. Now, as I said, no, this is another test. This is an experiment. Now, basically, the voters are looking at it 74. Now, all this time, they are saying this 74. Even these Aragalaya people, but they were saying 74 years, where have we ultimately come to? So, natural, we had to change. Those changes we had to accept. So, what are these changes? So, we have to, various people, people who want to find solutions should come out with solutions. We have to try out. Nothing is sacrosanct.
Yeah. I'm at a meeting.
Yeah. So we have to be we have to come out with solutions, and we have, sometimes it may be experiment, sometimes it can be a failure, but as it is, the best things that we can do is, because the Aragalaya particularly, they were saying we don't want these Harakkoras and various all kinds of people coming into the parliament. How to stop that? To stop that, we must have, this is what is happening in the corporate world. Anywhere you apply for a job, there are the eligibility criteria, you have to meet that. Then you have to meet the, what you call, interview. And then you fare the interview. And that is the present system that is there. Because since I have a banker, because I was DGM HR, I know a little bit of, how to recruit people and how to handle them. So this is the prevalence, and I am saying, because some people say education, the academic, whatever, our education system, the proof of the pudding is in the certificate. So we had to go by, if you go to an interview, if you show the certificate, then to some extent that the interview panel will get convinced. So if there are methods to find out, those are the instruments that we used. So that way, so in order to get political professionals, we must get people in the area. Number one is what is the objective of the election, what is the objective of the parliament, what is the objective of the provincial council, what is the objective of the local government. Knowing the objective, we must move towards, our aim is to meet the objective. Who are the best team to meet that objective? So for that purpose, we must have a political, because 16 million people, mind you, to get 225 people, is it a difficult thing? We can get, because the only thing is the professionals are not coming. Then in regard to this number of professionals are already there in the parliament. I mentioned last time also, there was a university don who wrote an article in Parliament and all that. Then I responded by saying, and he mentioned that there are so many lawyers, so many professors, so many economists, like that, so many accountants, and totaled it up. I told it up to see that there are 74. So out of 225, that is only 1/3. No, we must have professionals, not in that 75 number. We must have at least 200 professionals minimum. Then only they can talk. Then only they can have a professional consensual discussions. With this, 2/3 are not professionals.
Bernard, I think the time is a factor.
Sure.
So there are 3 people waiting to ask questions. Can we be short and more specific so we can finish on time? The next is Kapila. You want to ask your question? Kapila, can you hear me?
I'm trying to unmute. Okay. Let me first thank Bernard for his, he has taken a lot of trouble to make this presentation, and Ranjan also made a very valid point. Before that, I would like to address what Dharme was pointing out. I mean, it's true that there are lots of professionals who are out of the country. They had gone out for various reasons, some for, how do I call it, their own purposes of advancing themselves. But they have seen the world, yes, I agree. But I think if they have to come in this dual citizenship, they have to give up at the time of nomination. Because after getting elected, giving up nomination is a different matter. So if they are actually contesting and if they want to become an MP in the parliament, they must first give up that citizenship and then come and become a true Sri Lankan citizen. That's one way of tackling that problem. They are really committed to Sri Lanka. That's one way of tackling that problem. Then there was a mention of Reagan being an actor. But Reagan had think tanks for him. So they were actually advising him what to do and what not to do. I mean, in this country, politicians always take, because our people are so subservient to all the doctors, professors, everybody who is serving these political parties, they actually worship these fellows. And whatever, what I want to say is that there is no within party democracy. That's what has happened. Within the party, I mean, you have to go by the party line. And as a result, even if you know that the decision is wrong, you can't protest. Now, when you look at the present parliament also, there are some good people like Eran Wickramaratne and some people. But why are they silent? Within their own party when they are doing something wrong? I think that is where the problem is. There is no within party democracy. There is, I mean, opposition to some other views. The party leader decides what to do. And that's what has happened. Now, take the present president. He is deciding who should come in and who will become his advisor. It's not within the party. People discuss and appoint a think tank. Now, even think tanks, when we look at the Vyatmaga, who are the people who are in the Vyatmaga? I mean, people who are looking for benefits out of that relationship. The real think tank is not that. I mean, they are not looking for their personal gains. They are really looking at the way the country should go forward. I think this is where the problem has, we have failed. That's it. I mean, I don't want to take too much time.
Thank you, Kapila. I will take all that up together. I think Kavan raised hand. Kavan, you can answer. Kavan Ratnasunga, isn't it?
I just wanted to make just 3 points. One is that in the United States, the cabinet is not from the parliament. It is appointed of professional people, because the person who can sit in front and be a politician and get elected is completely different to a person who has the professional qualifications to run a ministry. So one thing is you don't need to have the British system of having all the parliamentarians doing the cabinet. The second thing is, I think our country really suffers from nepotism. I mean, with a lot of people from the same family coming into parliament, right? Now, I can remember long years ago, the foreign service, there were no two people from the same family was allowed to be working in the foreign service. That was probably to curtail nepotism. And I don't see why that sort of thing cannot be brought into parliament, because we want representatives of the people, and there is no need for two people from the same family representing in a small selection of 225. So that restriction would remove some of this nepotism happening in the country. And the third comment I want to do is the fact that Sri Lanka's the rot set in after we got rid of the civil service and the permanent secretaries, because the civil service and the permanent secretaries are the ones that continued a system where they were people who climbed up to the position from the departments to the rank, people who understood the departments. And finally, what happened now is that all those permanent secretaries have disappeared, and we have just political secretaries who are appointed at each time doing the will of the politician rather than what is good for the country. I will stop with that. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for all those comments. It will not go waste. I'll let you know how we are going to proceed shortly. But there are two other people raised hands. Udita.
Sorry, I missed the presentation, but I'm joining late. But with regards to having professionals in the parliament, I think it's very, very important. I'm in a way, I'm happy when someone mentioned that there are 75 professionals, but if I'm not mistaken, in the previous parliament, 65% of the people didn't have even A levels. The other thing was said, what has the professional brought to the parliament? I can't answer that directly, but many professionals like Harshad Iran Vikramaratne and Sumandiran, they are professionals, and they give quality. They give quality to the parliament. You may not agree or with what they are saying. You may agree or disagree, but they are giving quality, professional debates based on their experience. But if you look at on the other side of it, if the parliament is full of people who haven't got O levels, any education, alcoholics, drug laws, what they do is for them, while they're in parliament, while they're MP, they could earn so much of money, particularly if they become minister or junior minister, right? And if the leader has got own skeletons in his cupboard, he will want this sort of people who will raise their hands for anything the leader says, right? And that's what has happened over the last many years, right? But if professionals will not go down to that level, because they can, even if they're chucked the crooks in the parliament, they will hang on forever, because they know outside the parliament they will not be able to get a PN's job. Whereas if professionals are there, they can argue cases, disagree according to their knowledge, according to their profession, and they know even if they're chucked out of the parliament, they have got the profession to go back. And that is very important. Whereas crooks do not have anything to go back, and they will raise their hand to everyone. 18th Amendment, 19th Amendment, 20th Amendment, 20th Amendment, every amendment to satisfy the leader, they will raise their hands. So I think that's also a very important thing to realize, that we need to have quality people in the parliament. And also, why don't professionals get into the parliament? There is no level playing field at the time of election. The election spending should be cut so that everyone can uh, be a candidate. But now professionals do not have money. Drug lords and thugs do have money, and they are the people who get into the parliament. So there should be level playing field at the election, with the election expenses severely controlled, and then only professional could come into the parliament. I'll stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nida. I think you've made very good comments, and some of these things were actually brought up by Bernard during the presentation. So we're not going to stop there. We got Nilmini also raised hand. Nilmini, you want to make your comments as well, and then Bernard can answer.
Thank you so much, Shula, and Bernard, thank you very much for an interesting presentation. Just 2 or 3 little points, really, with regard to excluding somebody who is not a professional from standing. Could that be quite problematic if you've got, on the one hand, promotion of universal suffrage? So that is a little bit worrying if you exclude people because they don't have certain qualifications, because they're not professionals. Because, for example, if you're a poor farmer, you might have a very intelligent child, but you might pull him out of school because you need him to help working the land. But that child's interests in representing farmers could be quite valuable and important. So that's one thing in relation to that. So there's related to that is the other thing about just, not allowing MPs to have outside interests or being involved in business. Could that also discourage people from going into politics? Because unless there are salaries that are high enough as an MP, how can that MP also make a living and pay for his outgoings if he can't have an outside interest? On the other hand, could requiring them to declare interest before engaging in any contracts or something like that, would that be one way of getting around that? That external experience could be quite useful, being involved in other areas, other professions, other businesses could be quite useful in Parliament. That's one thing. The other thing I wanted to just mention was, it's really a question. Why is there such little representation of women in Parliament in Sri Lanka? Because given that 52% of the population is female, only 5% are women in Parliament. What is the reason for that? It's my question.
Bernard, I think, Nilmani, you made a very good point about external interests, especially because, say, after 5 years, if you lose your MP, you have to go and do something to live. So you have to have external interests. Otherwise, you're dependent, like some of the current parliamentarians, on the political system. So they keep ruining it as they go. So, Bernard, you want to answer the second question? Bernard?
Yes, now, of course, now we can't have a perfect formula for anything for that matter. So the shortcomings are there. Now, in this instance, as I mentioned before also, there is provision for experienced professionals also to come into Parliament. That in a structured interview system provides for that, but I given. So such people also can succeed, but not in large numbers. What I'm saying is now, we are talking about a limited situation now, 22 million coming down to 225 people. So whether we can afford to accommodate all fields is difficult. We must, number one is objective orientation. So what is the objective? I think I am repeating myself. We must first try to meet our objectives. There are other various people have different kinds of complaints to make, but now having faced this situation for 74 years, but we must find solutions. In short, now we have been doing the symptoms. We have seen the symptoms for the 74 years, and we have done the diagnosis also. Now we have to give the medicine. Whether we are going to do placebo or antihistamines or antibiotics is the matter that we all want to do now. So that is, those are called system changes. We have come to the end of the tether. Now we must talk of system changes and not of this is the all history, all thing over. Everything is over. Now future. From future, there must be a change. If that is the change, but as system changes, be specific, and we find very strongly we must be able to recommend some these system changes. Otherwise, we will be back in the same mud hole.
Yeah, there was another question from Nilmini asking about why there are no women in the, or less than 5% in the parliament. Is there a very good reason for in the current set, Bernard?
No, of course, hitherto we will have this, what do you call this, Pitrumulaka, Matrumulaka, Tapetino. So there's a superiority complex is there for the males, and most of the women are still seen to be as a weaker sex. So I think that is a thing that we have to get over the time. That time is the only healer for that purpose. But having this 25% requirement is a one move towards that end. Only thing is we will have to make it realistic to achieve. That's what I said in interview. Pre-interview marks should be given to them to come to the high rank position. So that is looked after in that way. So we have to try it. No.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bernard. I think. Sorry. Yeah.
Chula, can I just make a follow up on that question about women? It is quite shocking to see that only 5% are women in parliament in Sri Lanka, given that we had the first female prime minister, I think, in the world, didn't we? Can I just show you something very quickly, which I just looked up while you were
just
in
a second.
discussion.
I'll just have to make you a co-host to do it. Just a second.
To share screen for 2 seconds.
Yep. Please, I think you should be all right to share now.
Thank you. It's this that kind of really struck home. This shows the proportion of seats held by women in national parliaments in Sri Lanka from 2011 to 2021. It stayed at just around about 5% throughout those 10 years. All that time. So if you want system change, surely that's something that really needs to be addressed, given that 52% of the population are women. And then if you look at it against the rest of the world, you've got Sri Lanka at 5%. And then when you look at what are the other countries where they've got such small representation of women in parliament, it's usually countries like Qatar and Nigeria and Oman and these are the countries that have such few women in parliament. This is really quite revealing. And Lebanon, Kuwait, these are Middle Eastern countries. Surely Sri Lanka's not in the same category as those countries.
Yeah, you're right, Nilmini. That's why we were proposing equality to go into the constitution in our petition. The division is still there, female male division, dominance or whatever you call it. It's still apparent in in all cultures, I think. So that is probably one of the reasons why they can't make it, although they wanted to make it. But it's a complex issue. Now the thing is, now we are addressing a very major problem with lots of professional inputs, and they make very good points. So what I am proposing now, I think, Bernard, you might agree, and also Professor Lakshman, you presented as well. If it's better, we produce a kind of a draft document about all these things like minimum qualification criteria, eligibility criteria, representation, equality, and merit order, and all that kind of thing. And then present it item by item and get the inputs again to finalize the document so that we know what electoral reforms necessary, at least from the parliamentary system point of view. But the presidency and provincial council is a different ballgame altogether, and we should talk about it separately, I think. Otherwise, we get defocused. Right. What do you think, Bernard?
Yeah, you are right, because now as it is, since it has taken now 2 sessions also over, but because I was handling the total electoral system in my writings all the time, including provincial councils, executive presidency, and the local and provincial council, like that. So, but anyway, as you say, we can consider them separately, no problem. So we'll go.
Yeah, so if there's any other suggestions how to go forward from the audience, any other suggestions from anybody? Okay.
Chula,
Yeah.
Chula, I don't
Yeah.
want to also always say something, but then I think Udita made a very important point. If you really want to have the executive president system and still have the parliament, he made a very valid point that the president can run with the secretaries. I mean, they are professionals. He can run, that's the cabinet. But the parliament makes laws. Their job is not to, run the country. Their job is to make laws so that president can take from there. With his secretaries, he can run the program. And the parliament should approve the budget for that. I think what he made a very valid point there.
And also Kavan also made a similar comment about that. So which is a good thing if we can get all these inputs to do that. And that is why we were trying in the petition to try and say that, that the equality in representation and so on. And so we will be able to get all these citizens in. And in fact, the US looks as dual citizen as a positive point to recruit and have them, because then it brings in other areas of interest and so on into the US. So that is how they become a world leader, because they see other points of view in the electoral system. But ours, as Udisa mentioned, the dual citizens are third-class citizens, because I mentioned that the previous time as well. Because the first class are the ones who has got political connections. The second class are the ones who doesn't have political connections in Sri Lanka. And the dual citizens are the third class, but they are supposed to bring in all the money and everything else that is necessary for the country, but not participate in the governance. So this is a kind of, mockery we have, but we can make a progress. So what I'm suggesting is that all the proposals that we can make a summary document, and also include the pros and cons. Pros are the ones that will came as comments and criticisms from the audience, and then take it up to finalize this document. Is that okay, if that's all right with Bernard and Lakshman?
Yes. No problem. In fact, from this presentation, I was expecting there was some one or two proposals which are really out of the box. But I mentioned about I expected a response from that, because as I said, the main theme behind this whole proposal is Sri Lankan. And now whole thing is now we are quoting other countries that and our country, this whole case, it's a case of cultural attitudes and differences. So you can't compare US and Sri Lanka. As I say, if at all Asian countries, we have different culture, but there are different. So we are on our own, we have our own cultures. Though we have to, that is the thing, that is the real deciding factor. We can have systems and procedures, but if your culture, if your attitudes are not there, nothing it can be done. This is where the failures are coming in. So we have to, through the systems and procedures, we have to induce change of culture. That is what is happening.
Yeah, that's part of education, isn't it? So that's what we are also trying to do.
Yes.
But any other comments from others? Anybody else?
Chula, shall I come in?
Yes, Ranjana.
If you don't mind my saying this, I think the burning issue of the day in the country relates to the economic problems. So I feel that we should give some priority consideration to the possible solutions, because the latest information now, see, we went to the IMF somewhere in April, and now it is November, and and now the forecast is that IMF is not around the corner. It'll be sometime in 2023. Some of the creditors are backtracking, they're delaying. So in the meanwhile, we are printing money, and now we are in trillions. You see, so it's a very, very serious matter. Due priority, attention, importance is not being given to it. Yeah.
You're right, Rohan. Ranjan, I've been actually trying to get a financial expert who has been writing to the papers and so on. they are the least forthcoming people to talk about their knowledge in the finances. So I have even invited the previous central bank governors to try and come and talk about the current situation. But I have not had much luck yet, but I will try. I've been trying to get people. So if you have any connections to anybody, just let us know so that we can invite them to come into the forum and then express their views, because we don't exactly fully understand what's going on in here, because the information in the press and everything else is very different to the reality, I think. So that's one of the problems we have. So I will try. I will keep trying while do that. And so if anybody can come forward and at least present something about economy, then we can start a discussion going. It's probably best that somebody from Sri Lanka talk about it. Come on, you have raised the hand, yeah. Come on, you have raised the hand, yeah.
I want to make a comment. The government I think, has stopped printing too much money, but they are borrowing. The treasury bonds are being sold at 33% interest. I don't know how I can remember when Sakpiti was borrowing money at 33%. It was called a pyramid scheme. I think virtually the government is doing the same thing, borrowing money at 33%. So I think there is a problem, economic problem, which is very difficult, and we always thought that it will come around November, December, maybe, but I can see it coming in the near future, because we don't have the means of paying for all the goods that we need, or not getting the US dollars to pay for it.
You're right, Kaman, but sadly within the country, I mean, when I get the feedback, people have now kind of settled down to whatever that is going on. Some are really happy that the people who are doing work day to day or whatever, their salaries have gone up because and so on. So the system change thrust seem to have died down to some extent. It's almost like the tsunami time when the tsunami first wave receded. People went into the beach, right to the deep before they got caught for the second wave. So it's something like that is happening at the moment, I think. But it's the best way that we can do is to discuss and put this on record. So thank you for that comment, Kaman. Thank you.
Tsunami example is very nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's what is happening at the moment. So anyway, so that was one comment. Any others? So we want to conclude. It's nearly 2 hours now. But as I said, I'll try to prepare this document with the presenters and then present it again, because there are lots of issues that I actually wanted to comment, but I didn't want to because there's no time as well. And there are others who might come up with different new ideas as well. So thank you, Bernard, for putting us on light here with a different perspective and also some new suggestions out of the box, which is also important. And we will put it in one document together. And then we can take it one by one together with the audience. So then we can circulate the document and then take it up so that people can come forward and comment. Yeah, is that okay with you?
That's fine and great of you.
Yeah, and
okay,
Lakshman, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming in today. It was a very good discussion. I'm sure you all are getting more aware of the real situation in Sri Lanka. And there was a talk about this university issue and what is happening to university graduates. And I will take it up as a separate issue. And Professor Kapila knows a lot more than I do probably about the situation actually happening in the universities. So we'll take up as a different subject at some time and then explain also, maybe I have got some ideas how to rectify those. So we will take that forward. Thank you all, since there are no other comments, and it's a very lively, good discussion today. Thank you for the comments and also brilliant ideas. And we'll make use of it as a document and try to develop a consensus document that might be the simplest one that will correct our system in a future listening government whenever that comes to Sri Lanka. So thank you very much. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Chula.
Thank you, Chula. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.